Welcome to
Hello,
another
mate.
Liquid Bullet Productionz. Joining me today is former criminal and author of the book Three Wise Monkeys, Mr. Terry Anton. Thanks for coming, Terry.
Thank you, Lee. Nice to meet you. Hello,
Yeah, thanks for having us on. So, Terry, you're obviously the author of the book Three Wise Monkeys.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you're a former criminal, bit of a criminal history.
yeah.
So
I did
can we
about
just
4.5 years.
Yeah,
altogether.
so can we just wind back right to the beginning of sort of where it started and how you brought up, etc., etc.
Yeah. Up until I was about 12 years of age, I was just a normal, average child, quite quiet and, got embarrassed quite easily.
Yeah.
And then one day, my mother turned around and said, "Your dad, who you think's your dad, is your stepdad, and your dad is dead. He died in a car accident." Anyway, I went totally off it. I did things, and my mindset just totally changed. I went from a quiet.
Must have totally thrown you. Must have totally sort of blown your head away.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I went from a quiet child to a child that was always fighting at school. Hated the word bastard. And if anybody called me a bastard, I'd go ballistic. And I got involved in all kinds of fighting and whatever. But the thing is, my mother got together with this guy who it turns out was a paedophile. And to cover his tracks, what he'd do is bully and put me down and, made me life hell, actually. Because you were a big bloke and I was like 9 stone wet through, and no match for him. And he used to punch me full in the face with his fist.
So you're still a child at this age, and you've got a fully grown man actually hitting you full pelt.
I was about 12, 13, nothing. I was quite a skinny child. Because when you're a child, no matter how much you eat, some people can't just put weight on.
Oh.
And I was one of them. I was, and I've even got a scar here, what he did, because he threw a pointing trowel at me. Because basically, I was mixing cement for him, but I was mixing cement on soil, and he was bricklaying. So there was bits in the cement, and he kicked off and threw this pointing trowel, which was very sharp, and I've got a scar here because of it. So every time I shave, I can remember it. It's little things like that. But this went on when I left school. And what you call it? I went working for him. The bullying, the punching, all the rest of it carried on, and he wasn't paying me. So basically, I think he paid me once. He paid me a £5. I didn't know whether to frame it. You know what I mean? And all my mates, they had cars, scooters, good clothes, because they were working for proper people. And I got
really, he was treating you like a bit of slave labour, really. He's making you work a full day work, knocking your pan out, getting nothing for it.
Exactly.
And not even being nice to you at home. So when you're not even in a safe place once you go home.
Well, that's it, because him and my mother used to go out spending the money, the house money, on booze. My mother was an heavy smoker, so it'd be like on booze and fags. We were like, I don't know about my sister, but I was eating jam butties. You know what a jam butty is, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was eating jam butties from morning till night, sort of thing. And like I say, I used to look at my mates and I used to get quite envious, because like I say, they had a good thing going. And I knew if I'd have left if I'd have left his employment, I'd have had to move house or something like that. And it's like they say, love is blind. Yeah, I didn't love him, but I loved my mother. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
So,
when I
Terry,
look,
can I just jump in and ask you? So, was you not really getting looked after at home, even like not getting dinners made and stuff like that?
no, nothing. No. And it's like, to escape the abuse and everything, I went up this like a fire escape at this nearby mill. It was quiet. It was like 200 foot up, so I was out the way. You know, people, even the bullies from school, couldn't get at me.
Did that feel like a sort of safety sort of net for you, like a little comfort zone where you could feel safe?
Yeah, it was like an escape.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
and it's, you know, and I think that was the start of me being a escapee, because like when I was in Nick, because I did, like I say, 4.5 years all told, I used to read books, adventure books, things like that. That was an escape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I started my alcoholism, that was an escape.
Yeah. Just to like numb the pain and the sort of trauma you've been through.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I must admit, you know, like I say, I do have memories of me abuse as a child and things like that. And I do have resentments against my mother and things like, you know, because if she'd had anything about her, she'd have known what was going on and put a stop to it, kicked him out or whatever. And I mean, like my first stepdad, he was an okay guy, but, you know, my mother was a young woman and he couldn't give her what she wanted, basically, in the bedroom department. I know that's a bit personal. But, you know, if she'd have thought about her kids more than herself, you know, we wouldn't have had to go through that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's because of her getting together with this pedo that our lives were ruined. Like my sister, who was messed with for something like 6 years, she ended up an alcoholic, and she died in her late 40s because her organs just packed up. And her alcoholism, well, it wasn't just alcohol, it was drugs as well. She just couldn't face life. Like me, you know, she'd suffered with the abuse, but obviously mine was physical and mental. Hers was probably mental and sexual, which obviously is quite worse. And like I say, she died quite young, and she had young kids as well. So even they suffered. So it's like a knock-on effect.
Yeah. So what sort of age was you at this point, Terry, when you're sort of getting this abuse from the guy and stuff?
About 13, like most 13-year-olds, you know, I was a bit of a cheeky chappy. And like I say, always fighting. I never got done for violence, though. And, you know, I've never been caught for violence. Because most people I've fought against, we've had the fight and just walked away. You know, we've not run to the police or anything. Because 9 times out of 10, it's 6 of one and half a dozen of the other, you know, that's the way you do it. Although I don't like violence. You know, I hate violence. In fact, I can't even watch it on telly. But, you know, all the abuse and everything, when I was about 16, I think, 15, 16, I started breaking into places, mainly warehouses. I can probably count on one hand how many houses I ever did, because I think that's a bit too personal, breaking into somebody's house. Like a business, they can claim it under insurance, can't they? I don't know if that sounds bad. You know,
And
you still,
it's so much of a loss, is it, to a business, to his like sort of personal belongings?
yeah. But anyway, first time I got caught, I think it was about 16. I got caught in a bank. I won't tell you which bank. I got caught in a bank, and I was looking at the safe, and they have these peepholes. Well, you know, you have frosted glass, and then you've got a clear bit as a peephole. And you know when you get that feeling that somebody's watching you. And I looked round, and I saw this tit head looking through the spile. You know what I mean by a tit head, don't you?
Really old police hat, yeah.
And I got out. This copper was chasing after me over at roofs and everything like that. And he said to me mother when she come visiting me after, "You're very lucky that you're talking to your son, because if he'd have slipped, it would have been certain death." You know what I mean? Because I would like jumping over gaps in roofs and things like that. And if I'd have slipped, I'd have fallen about 40 foot.
Yeah.
You know
I suppose you've already brought up though, Terry, that you was climbing up these towers and that. So for you, it's probably quite a natural thing to do.
Oh yeah, it's like my first job. I was my first real job that I did. I was working on the roofs, helping a roofer, and to me it was like walking on the floor. You know, I weren't scared. I've never really been scared of heights. But like I say, I was in and out of borstals, prison. I've done the tour of prisons. I think I've done Wandsworth, Scrubs, Pentonville, Brixton, Risley, Liverpool, Strangeways. I've done them all.
How did you find? Obviously, you said about you in the borstals and that. How did that affect you, or how did you come to terms with that?
Well, first time I went in Borstal, it was like going to big school. You know what I mean? When all the lads are bigger. So I was quite skinny. I'd only really just started going to the gym and things like that. And there were a few things that happened on my first Borstal. Like some guys, I think there were about half a dozen of them, tried to hold me down. And one of them, strangely enough, his nickname was Donkey Dick for obvious reasons, tried to shove his dick in my mouth while the others held me down. Anyway, I managed to break free. This goes on all the time. You know the film Scum?
Yeah.
That rape scene really, you know, brings it home to me. I can't watch that bit. But anyway, I broke free, and I put a chair over the back of somebody's head. And if you've ever been in there, the metal chairs, I mean, they hurt. And that toughened me up, because throughout Hold Me Bird, I went in like a lamb and come out like a lion, you know, because in them places, you can't just say, "No, I don't want to fight," and walk away, because then the dickheads come out of the woodwork then and pick on you.
Yeah.
So you have to fight whether you like it or not. So, like I say, it toughened me up. But the thing is,
Terry, can I just ask you there quickly? So, what with the wardens or the screws, whatever you want to call them, what were they sort of like then? Were they sort of on top of things, or were they letting it happen? These sort of things.
Well, they weren't on your case too much, because I was in an open borstal. So basically, you could just jump out the window anytime you like. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah. Not that I ever did. I had, when I was in Wandsworth, I had a couple of chances to jump over the wall, but I didn't. I thought, it's not worth it. You're looking over your shoulder for the rest of your life.
And if you get caught, you get longer, surely. So
you get I think it's depending on how long what you do and everything, you probably get another 6 months on top. So it's not worth it. I prefer to just like sit on my pot, or I should say, I did just sit on my pot and do my bird. You know, lay on my bunk and read a good book. Nowadays, they've got television, record players, all the rest of it. You know, they've got it cushy compared to where we had it.
Terry, can I just ask you this? Obviously, from where you come from, your background with the stepdad and the abuse, was Borstal sort of more lighter than home, or was Borstal worse than home? Because
Actually, I think it was better. Borstal was better. Yeah.
Borstal was better than your own home.
Yeah, because if you get in with a good crowd, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like in prison. I've met more decent people in prison than I have out of prison, because there's quite a few people that've never been in prison that should be in prison. You know, I won't name names, but you know, there's a lot of people that do a lot of bad and get away with it. You know, they've got fancy lawyers, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I weren't that lucky. The only difference between me and them is I got caught. You know, that's the only difference. And I've learned from my mistakes. You know, well, I won't go down that road again. I've too much to lose now.
Yeah. Yeah. So what sort of age was you sort of in and out of the prisons, Terry?
Mainly in my teens. From about 17, I think, was my first borstal. And I did 18 months when I was 19, and I had a big gap then. And I started drinking and getting into the wrong kind of company when I moved down London, because I lived in London for about 11 years, in the East End of London. And I got it because of drink. I got into a lot of scrapes. I did 6 months. Trying to think what I did. In the scrubs, I did 6 months. And then I did 2 years in Wandsworth.
So just ask you there, Terry, you said about you started drinking then. Do you think the drinking was sort of masked the sort of trauma you'd been through, or to sort of put that in the back of your mind? And
it was basically like putting a sticking plaster on something that probably needed a bandage.
Yeah.
You know, because basically it was a mixture of my past, my drinking, the anger I had inside, that, you know, it wasn't a good combination. You know, I wouldn't like to go down that road again. But I'm 25 years sober now.
Congratulations, mate. Well done.
Yeah. It took me rock bottom to get me to stop drinking, because it made me feel my rock bottom was basically I found myself in a tabloid newspaper. And it turns out that my family had used me as an ATM for 7 years, and telling lies about me and all the rest of it. And because I wasn't a newspaper reader, they just had free range.
So your own family was basically selling stories about their son to gain financial.
Yeah. It's like they say, they were pissing up my back and telling me it was raining. You know what I mean? And then shortly after finding out I was attacked in my own place, I was still an alcoholic, and I used to play my music quite loud at night. And my neighbours never really complained to me, because they complained to the papers rather than because they got paid for it, rather than complain to me.
Yeah.
And I would have just said, "Oh, thanks, I'll stop," sort of thing. Anyway, I got gang raped and left for dead. The police did nothing, as per usual. Because these days, especially, they are like cardboard cutouts. They don't do nothing nowadays. Probably because they're underfunded, I don't know. But that's a different subject. And then within 5 years, it took a couple of years for me to stop trying to commit suicide by taking overdoses. I never ended up in hospital. I never had a phone where I'd sort of take a few pills and then ring somebody. I was definite that I wanted to end my life. But I kept waking up. Then one night I went after the ringleader of the gang that had attacked me, and I was going to take his head off, literally, with a meat cleaver. But right to the last few seconds, I had a bit of clarity. And I thought, if I do this, I'm going to be doing 15, 20 years for an absolute scumbag. So I put the meat cleaver away and just carried on. He would call me names and things like that, shithouse and all the rest of it. And I thought, well, I'd rather be a shithouse and still walk in the streets. Then, like I say, a few years, whatever, I started doing something about my drinking. And took me about 5 years, I think, 3 to 5 years to actually put it down. And I had to get medication to help put it down. It's called anti-abuse. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
But apparently what it does, if you pick up a drink when you're on that, it's only 1 pill a day. It makes you really ill. And believe you me, it does make you ill. You feel like you're dying. And like my first attempt, I'd give it a few days and I was doing all right, and then all of a sudden the cravings just got too bad, so I picked a drink up. And luckily, because at the depths of my drinking, I was drinking like 42 units per night. And then by the time I went on the anti-abuse, I was drinking like 21. It was like not Castle, Heineken, things like that I was drinking. But it still made me quite ill.
Yeah.
So I give it another, I think, year, and I was still trying to cut down. I was going to AA as well. Then eventually, on the 24th of March, 1997, I thought to myself, today's the day. I went to the medicine cabinet, took my first anti-abuse. I've never picked a drink up since. Touch wood. You know what I mean?
Well done, mate. Congratulations on that.
And my life is 100 times better because I've met a wonderful woman. She doesn't understand half of what I've been through because, she's had a proper childhood, a proper upbringing, whereas I've had a totally different upbringing. So in some ways, she's knocked the rough edges off me. You know what I mean? Because it's just, you can't forget your past.
Fully give the sort of loving that you deserved as a child that you missed out on, that sort of you've caught up with now.
Yeah. So like, I think it was a couple of years ago, November 20, I brought my book out, 3 Wise Monkeys, and it obviously goes in more detail than what I've just spoke about.
Yeah.
I've tried to make it as inspirational as possible. I've tried to put funny bits in, although they're serious. I mean, I've even laughed at myself with some of the things I've done in drink. because there are some funny things, believe me. So, you know.
Can I just ask you there, Terry? So obviously you've written your own book about your own life. How did you start out to become an author? Or how did you sort of go down that path?
Well, I think I just had this yearning to get it out of my head. So I started, somebody told me about where they were writing letters to themselves, and they said it's very therapeutic. So I thought, well, I'll go one step further. I'll start writing about my life. And it started out as a paragraph. And then a paragraph got to a page got to 10 pages, and so on, you know.
Yeah.
And what I used to do is, like, I'd write a bit and then read through it, adding bits, taking bits away. And it took me about 4 years, all told.
Yeah.
You know, and I had to have CBT as well, therapy, because some of it was quite painful.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Just writing about it.
Reliving the trauma and what you've been through.
Yeah. It was. I'm glad that I did it. At first, it was scary when I first got it published, and the publisher sent the book back, and I thought, "Oh shit, it's out there now. I can't take it back." You know, but I've come through the other side.
Yeah, I think as well, Terry, by you coming out and telling your story and being brave like that and sharing it, people in that same situation that you've been in, they might be able to look at it like a sort of light at the end of the tunnel, or there is better life to have, or even find a way of helping them through their journey by reading your book.
It's like at the depths of me drinking. I never thought, if somebody just said to me, one day you'll be 25 years sober, you'll have a perfect life and all the rest of it, I'd say, fuck off, you're talking out your ass. You know what I mean? But, I am 25 years sober, and I'm glad I'm sober.
Yeah.
I don't smoke. I used to do weed. I used to drink strong lagers and things like that. And looking back, I don't see the same person. I don't feel the same person. I can't believe half of what I've done in the past, because I have to think, was that really me? But it was. But the thing is, I can't change it. I need a time machine to change it.
Yeah. Terry, is there any sort of do you ever sort of have any sort of thoughts of, or did you ever used to blame yourself for the things people done for you? I know obviously none of it was your fault, but you find some people think it's their fault, don't they, when they've been through stuff like that?
I think it was partly due to my family, because my family didn't want me to stop drinking. They lost the control when I stopped drinking, because basically, because of the press, they were feeding lies, all different stupid, vile things. And they lost control when I put the drink down. Even when I moved in with my wife, before we became man and wife, I didn't tell them where I lived, because they would have tried to control me.
Yeah.
So basically, I've distanced myself from that part of my family. In my mind, they don't exist. So even me, my son and my daughter have tried different strokes, if you like. Basically, you've just got to cut toxic people out of your life. You can't have people like that when you're trying to stay sober or off your addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Terry, I just wanted to ask you there, sort of, do you have any regrets, sort of, from your past? Do you have anything you sort of look back on and think, I wish I did do this, or I wish I didn't do that?
Well, my granddad once told me, when my mother was leaving me first stepdad, you need to put yourself in care. And looking back, I wish I'd listened to him. You know what I mean? I know that might sound harsh, but when you've got a toxic family that only want what's bad for you, you know, the best thing to do is to distance yourself from them. And that is one of my biggest regrets and one of the biggest resentments that I've got. Mainly against my mother. She's passed on now, but I still hate her. You know, I know you shouldn't say that, but
That's understandable, mate. From what you've been through, I can understand it perfectly well.
yeah. But you know, like I say, my life is a lot better. You know, I'm in my little bubble, and it's a loving, caring bubble, not hateful, toxic, or anything like that. I'm happy with my life. I wouldn't change it for the world.
Terry, can I just ask you as well? What does the future like for you now? So, you know, what have you got any plans for the future or a different way of life now?
Well, I'm hoping to start college in September and continue my counselling studies because I got up to my level 4. Because basically, I want to go into addiction counselling.
Yeah.
I'm not really bothered if I get paid for it, so just as long as I'm doing it, because I get a lot.
Help others and sort of, you know,
yeah,
help through the journey you've through.
Yeah, because I get a lot from helping other people.
Yeah.
I've worked for Samaritans in the past on the phone. And I could identify with some of the suffering that some of them were going through. And sometimes it would trigger bad things. So I had to stop it. Not that it would have led to drinking or anything like that or committing suicide, but it was affecting me.
Yeah. I suppose just dragging up them bad thoughts again, sort of.
I still get triggers. You know, you never free of them triggers. But as long as I stay away from the drink, I'll probably die happy. You know, and I've achieved something. I brought that book out, you know, and I can only, it's in a way I brought the book out to get the truth out because the Sun doesn't seem to want to know, but they only print lies, you see. And if you're listening, hello.
Where can people find your book, Terry, if they want to pick it up and read your story more?
It's on Amazon and it's in Waterstones. And I believe it's on Kindle as well. So,
as I say, just listening to your story there, Terry, it's quite an inspiration, really, for other people, you know. So I think it'd be well worth people picking up the book if they've been in that situation or going through that situation or even just want a good book to read.
Yeah. I've been told it's quite emotional. Like I say, I've tried to put some funny bits in because us alcoholics do funny things sometimes. But see, the thing is now, I know what I'm doing the night before, whereas then I didn't know what I was doing the night before.
Yeah.
I used to suffer blackouts and everything, so I went to a good situation.
Yeah. So, Terry, we're starting to wind it up there, mate.
Right.
Thank you ever so much for coming on and telling your story. I really appreciate it. And before we go, is there any words of advice for any youngsters or anyone, you know, getting into sort of the bad path?
Just count to 10 and think about what you're doing. You know, if your mates going out doing this and that, breaking the law and everything like that, don't go down that road. It's not worth it. It just fucks your life up big style. Because if I could change anything, I wouldn't have gone to prison, borstal, all the rest of it. I mean, I know things happen for a reason, but you don't need to make your life that much harder.
Yeah.
Because it does make your life hard.
I suppose as well, Terry, sort of, you know, if you've got a criminal record and you're going for another job, it can sort of come back and bite you in the arse, can't it?
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
I've lost jobs where they found out I've been in Nick. I've had, the funny thing is, when they find out that you've been in Nick, all of a sudden things go missing. Nothing goes missing, but all of a sudden things go missing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know, they like to point the finger, but nobody's whiter than white, no matter what you think. Everybody stole something.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, it just gives it a stereotype, doesn't it? That
Yeah.
sort of name, sort of branded with.
Yeah.
Okay, Terry. Thanks for coming on and sharing your story. It's much appreciated, and I wish you all the luck in the rest of your future.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
All right.